They found a gathering of Khazari and human scientists crowded around a massive holographic projection of a distant star system. A Khazari researcherone of the youngest in their hierarchy stood at the center, its scales a shifting mosaic of excitement. Reynolds recognized it as the same junior engineer who had once pulled him aside to discuss patterns in his quantum field adjustments. Now it wore an official senior researcher's badge, its once subdued scales blazing with confidence. Chief Engineer Reynolds, Admiral Chen. The researcher's scales rippled in a polite greeting, then flared again in eager anticipation. We have received anomalous signals from a system beyond your cloud, a faint quantum signature that does not align with any known resonance pattern in our combined databases. Reynolds stepped closer. Unknown quantum signals. That's a new one. The researcher nodded. They appear to be artificially generated. Our best hypothesis is that they belong to a civilization employing quantum technologies far different from either ours or yours. A low hum of tension spread through the conference room. Half a year ago, the Khazari considered themselves the pinnacle of advanced technology. Now they were discovering that the universe might be larger and more mysterious than any of them had guessed. That would mean a third party, Admiral Chen said, eyes narrowed. Have we managed to pinpoint the signal's location? Yes. The researcher tapped a crystalline control panel, and the holographic display zoomed in on a star system, about 3 light-years away. We designated it System 184, Echo. Minimal data from our combined survey probe suggests a planetary arrangement that could support life or at least complex infrastructure. The signals are weak but continuous. We believe they might be a beacon or a distress call. Reynolds glanced at Chen. Her expression was unreadably equal parts thrill and worry. If it's a distress call, we might have a moral obligation to investigate, she said slowly. But we also have to consider the risk of stumbling into someone else's territory. The Khazari researchers' scales shimmered in agreement. Your perspective aligns with ours. The High Council wishes to send a joint mission to System 184 Echo to investigate the source of this signal. Sounds like a job for the Helios Dawn, Reynolds said, turning to Chen. We've been itching to test out the new drive configurations anyway. Chen's gaze drifted back to the hologram. Let's do it, but we'll proceed with caution. We're stepping into the unknown. Despite the new alliance, old habits died hard. Khazari security teams insisted on numerous protective measures, while human officers argued for a more diplomatic approach. Both sides eventually compromised, fitting the Helios Dawn with advanced stealth fields, provided by the Khazari, and a robust but strictly defensive weapons suite, courtesy of Earth's engineering corps. Reynolds, for his part, was in charge of the Helios Dawn's propulsion systems. He'd spent weeks integrating Khazari quantum field generators with human fusion-based engineering, creating a hybrid drive that promised far more precise FTL jumps. If everything went according to plan, they could hop between star systems with minimal energy loss, something the Khazari had never dreamed possible until recently. Before departure, he took a last walk through the refurbished engine room. It was a crystalline cathedral of Khazari architecture woven together with human metalwork. Holographic consoles glowed in pastel hues, displaying advanced readouts that only months ago would have been science fiction. Khazari and human engineers huddled around various stations, checking calibrations and triple verifying the new safety protocols. One of the Khazari approached him, a junior engineer with scales shifting in a pattern of mingled pride and nervousness. Chief Engineer Reynolds, the harmonic drive is stable. All frequencies are synced as you specified. Reynolds nodded. Good work. If we pull this off, you'll be among the first Khazari to see just how far beyond your old equations we can go. The engineer's scales brightened. It is exhilarating. Reynolds patted the alien's shoulder, an odd gesture for Khazari, who weren't big on physical contact. Even so, the engineer didn't flinch. They'd come a long way in understanding one another's customs. On the bridge, Admiral Chen ordered all stations ready. The Helios Dawn's new hybrid drive hummed at the edge of human hearing, a soft tone like distant singing glass. The Khazari seemed to feel it in their bones. Their scales took on subtle shifts whenever the quantum fields fluctuated. Final approach vector locked, reported a human navigator. We're clear to engage FTL jump on your mark. Chen leaned forward in her command chair. Initiate jump. Reynolds keyed in the carefully plotted coordinates, his heart pounding with the thrill of a new frontier. The hum in the drive room rose in pitch, and the stars outside the bridge windows blurred, streaking into the kaleidoscopic swirl of faster-than-light travel. A moment later, the Helios dawn snapped back into normal space. The swirl of distorted starlight stabilized, revealing a star system dominated by a dull yellow sun and a handful of planets shrouded in cosmic dust. "Incredible," one of the Khazari officers murmured. "That jump was so smooth." "All systems nominal," a human technician confirmed. Reynolds allowed himself a moment of pride. Their drive had worked flawlessly. Finally, humanity and the Khazari had developed something superior to either civilization's earlier technology. Admiral Chen crossed her arms. "Scan for that signal." The Helios Dawn sensors picked up the elusive quantum signature almost immediately. It emanated from the third planet in System 184 Echo's habitable Zonia rocky world with a murky atmosphere. Early readings suggested it had once been Earth-like, but whatever processes governed its climate had long since gone haywire. "Atmospheric composition is in flux," said a Khazari science officer, scales fluttering in alarm. "High concentrations of carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds. Life is possible, but severely stressed." Reynolds frowned at the data. "Doesn't look like a comfortable place for a vacation." "Certainly not," Chen agreed. "But the signal's coming from the planet's surface. If it's a distress call, there could be survivors or an automated beacon." "We should investigate," said the young Khazari researcher who had first briefed them. The intensity of its scale patterns indicated urgency. "But we must also be prepared for potential hostility. If there is a civilization down there, they might not appreciate unannounced visitors." Chen exhaled. "Agreed. We'll take a small landing part of scientists, engineers, minimal security detail. Reynolds, we'll need your expertise if there's any advanced tech involved. And you," she looked at the Khazari researcher, "we'll need your insight into any quantum anomalies." "Yes, Admiral." The shuttle cut through the turbulent atmosphere, buffeted by high winds laced with acidic particles. Through the cockpit window, Reynolds caught glimpses of jagged mountain ranges and vast, dried-out seas. The planet's surface had once been vibrant. Now it looked scorched and desolate. Upon landing on a rocky plateau, the team stepped out, wearing specialized suits to filter out the worst of the toxins. The air burned faintly in Reynolds' lungs even through the helmet's filtration systems. A yellow haze stretched in all directions. The sun's light filtered through thick layers of dust and smog. They followed the signal deeper into a ravine carved by what must have once been a large river. The terrain was littered with strange crystalline formations. A Khazari officer paused to examine one. "This composition is artificial," it noted, scales flickering in astonishment. "Some kind of engineered structure." "Engineered for what?" Reynolds wondered aloud. "Energy conduction." "Possibly. Let's keep moving." The signal led them to a half-buried complex near the ravine's end, a towering structure of alien design, partially collapsed. Despite centuries of neglect, a faint glow pulsed from within, accompanied by a subtle vibration beneath their feet. Inside, the corridors were broad and hexagonal, lined with alien script that neither Khazari nor human translators could decipher. The walls were composed of a metal glass composite that resonated under their footsteps. "We're definitely not dealing with a Khazari outpost," Reynolds said softly. "This is something else entirely." A series of twisting passages eventually opened into a massive chamber housing a central pillar of crystalline conduits. At its heart, a sphere of swirling energy emitted the faint but constant quantum signal they had been tracking. The Khazari researcher stepped forward, scanning the device. "It appears to be a core of condensed quantum particles, but the field frequencies are unlike anything we've seen." Reynolds approached the pillar, carefully studying the swirling energies. The device reminded him of the Khazari's quantum field generators, yet this was far more refined light years beyond the technology of either civilization. If this is a distress beacon, it's still active after who knows how long. Must be running on some kind of self-sustaining cycle. Admiral Chen kept a wary eye on the surroundings. "Do we have any signs of life here?" The Khazari researcher tapped its equipment. "Nothing biological so far." Reynolds resisted the urge to touch the pillar directly. "Let's see if we can interface carefully, maybe decipher what this beacon is saying." They were so focused on the beacon that the approach of other life forms caught them by surprise. A sudden ripple in the air and a cascade of strange lights heralded the arrival of two tall, slender beings. Their skin glistened like polished onyx, and they wore intricate harnesses that pulsed with the same color patterns as the beacon's swirling energy. Everyone froze. The newcomers raised hand-like appendages, and an unfamiliar hum vibrated through the air. After a tense moment, a voice resounded in their minds, more musical than the Khazari's translations but carrying the same telepathic clarity. "Why do you trespass here?" Admiral Chen stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show she was unarmed. "We come in peace. We detected your signal and believed it might be a distress call." The two beings exchanged a look, their expressions unreadable. Reynolds felt his heart thumping. First contact again, but this time with a species that seemed to truly understand the quantum energies they manipulated. "You are neither the ancient ones who built this place, nor are you from the Khazari brood," the voice said. "How did you come to be here?" Reynolds cleared his throat. "We're from Earth. The Khazari are our allies. We share knowledge of quantum technology. We found your beacon, or this beacon, and followed it." The aliens' harnesses glowed in overlapping patterns, as though they were scanning or analyzing the visitors. "This beacon has been active for millennia. You are the first to respond." In the stifling stillness of the great chamber, the new arrivals introduced themselves, though the name they used was untranslatable in human or Khazari tongues. Their telepathic transmissions suggested their people had once inhabited this world when it was lush and vibrant. Then something went catastrophically wrong. An experiment in global quantum engineering destabilized the planet's climate, decimating the ecosystem. Only a few enclaves of their kind endured. The beacon had been designed to call for help from allies long lost to time. Its signal had gone unanswered for centuries until now. Admiral Chen cast a sympathetic look around the ruined complex. "If your civilization is endangered, we may be able to help. We've made some breakthroughs in quantum technologies ourselves." Reynolds nodded. "We can at least stabilize the environment if we understand what went wrong. Our combined science teams have some experience with advanced quantum systems." The leading alien studied them, its luminescent harness pulsing in slow waves. "You hold knowledge of the quantum field, but the technology you carry is incomplete." Reynolds almost laughed at the echo of what he'd once told the Khazari. In a sense, they were all still learning. "We'd welcome the chance to learn from you, if you'd be willing to teach us." Silence followed. Then came a telepathic response. "We sense sincerity. We wish to preserve what remains of our home and to understand how to avoid such mistakes. But first, you must prove your intentions." Over the next days, the Helios Dawn's expedition team worked side by side with the new aliens whom humans nicknamed the Arathi, based on the closest rendering of their self-designation. They studied the planet's surface, took atmospheric readings, and examined the subterranean power grids that once sustained entire continents. Reynolds discovered that the Arathi's quantum systems functioned on principles that made Khazari technology look clumsy by comparison. Where Khazari drives merely bent existing quantum fields, the Arathi manipulated the fields almost artistically, weaving them into localized reality shifts. "This is absolutely astounding," a wide-eyed Khazari researcher breathed, inspecting an Arathi conduit that looked like a thread of pure light encased in a slender frame. "It's as though they're conversing with the quantum realm itself, rather than forcing it into compliance." Reynolds glanced at the battered environment beyond the shielding. The Arathi had once used these abilities on a planetary scale, reshaping weather systems and ecology in ways that ultimately spiraled out of control. "Brilliant, but dangerous," he murmured. Despite the planet's grim state, the Arathi still harbored hope. They believed that, with help, they might at least stabilize sections of the environment to sustain what remained of their population. In return, they offered to share the deeper truths of their quantum arts, hoping humanity and the Khazari might be wiser stewards. Not everyone in the alliance was as optimistic. A contingent of Khazari officers, still uneasy about their recent humiliation, worried that the Arathi technology could overshadow their own. Earth's diplomatic team, meanwhile, feared the possibility of inviting unknown dangers back to human space. "This is a high-risk scenario," one of Chen's advisors warned during a private briefing aboard the Helios Dawn. "We barely understand Khazari systems. Now we're dealing with technology far beyond that. What if the Arathi decide to expand? Or if someone tries to weaponize their abilities?" Chen pressed her lips into a thin line. "We can't pretend this isn't risky, but we came here under the assumption that the signal was a call for help. Would we turn away after making contact?" Reynolds, seated next to her, let out a sigh. "We were the primitive ones a few months ago, until the Khazari realized we had the insight they needed. Now we're in the Khazari's old shoes, confronted by someone who's more advanced than us. The question is, do we learn from them and risk a balance shift, or walk away and leave them to die on this broken world. Chen's gaze swept the small group. If we walk away, we lose an ally and possibly lose the moral high ground we've tried so hard to maintain. If we help, we enter uncharted territory yet again. A tense silence fell, until one of the Khazari engineers who had joined the meeting spoke up. Its scales rippled with conviction. You humans showed us that cooperation can be more powerful than conquest. If we do not extend the same courtesy to the Arathi, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past.